This is my fourth attempt to do a video on the Sixth Commandment, thou shalt not commit adultery. I did a series on thou shalt not kill last week, and I thought, you know what, why not do all the other commandments? They were written by God, with his own finger, so I think that's important that people know these commandments. It's we teach this to our first graders and second graders before they receive First Communion, and catechizing the youth and all people, those who are in the RCA program, etc. So this is a lengthy video on adultery, committing adultery, the Sixth Commandment, etc., and the sacrament of holy matrimony. So the Sixth Commandment is one of the most widely recognized, moral principles across many cultures and religions, not just Christianity. It's found in Exodus chapter 20, verse 14, where it's a direct divine directive, a prerogative of God, who wrote it with his own finger on the Ten Commandments before he gave them to Moses to protect the sanctity of marriage. And the family unit, which is the bedrock of society. Everything starts in the home. Thou shalt not commit adultery, underscores the sanctity of holy matrimony and the covenant between spouses. It's right after thou shalt not kill. It's number 6. It's right in the middle of the Ten Commandments. It's rooted in the Old Testament. And it's God's design for society starts in the home, in family marriages, and protecting the family unit, I think, is a better way of looking at it. And it's really the foundation of all society. If there is no marriage, respect for marriage, or, then society is going to break down. You see that throughout history when scandals, especially sexual, Rome in the 410s before it fell was just rampant with sexual immorality. There was a lot of orgies and houses, brothels, whatnot. Marriage wasn't respected at all. Infidelity between, senators and emperors and then even later on, 1,000 years later, King Henry VIII, there's another example of what happens when you do not respect the Sixth Commandment. Adultery is defined as any sexual relation between a married person and someone else, other than their spouse. It violates the sacred bond they had. It also causes great harm in relationships and communities. In the Old Testament, adultery is treated quite severely. I think in chapter 20, Leviticus. The consequences for committing adultery is to be stoned and to be put to death. So if that doesn't speak volumes about how serious the commandment is, I don't know what will. Adultery represents, profound betrayal of trust. Breaking that covenant, it's not just breaking your trust with your spouse, but that of God. He was there. He is also part of the marriage bond. And it violates exclusive commitment and fidelity that really defines marriage. And it also inflicts deep emotional and psychological wounds that reverberate throughout the family and community, for generations. In Proverbs chapter 6-ish, there's some wisdom in that. What did it say? It warns that adultery brings ruin and disgrace, and it states, he who commits adultery lacks sense, and he who does it destroys himself. I'm fighting serious nausea. I've had symptoms since I've been out west in South Dakota. Now I'm back, and I can't keep up doing the YouTube thing. Just keep going. Okay, back to the Sixth Commandment. If you remember the story of David and Bathsheba, that's a perfect example that illustrates the ripple effects of the damage done between, families, spouses, and community. that David's adultery, even though he had other wives, but Bathsheba was already married to Uriah, and he was not, she wasn't free for that marriage, even though the king could have multiple wives. So she does this once in a while. Go. I'm videoing right now. The New Testament deepens this understanding of this commandment, thou shalt not commit adultery. And it extends beyond just physical acts to, the heart's intentions. Jesus teaches in Matthew 5 at the Mount of Beatitudes, he says, you have heard that it was said, you shall not commit adultery. But I say to you that everyone who looks at a woman with lustful intent has already committed adultery in his heart. And this elevates, reinforces the importance of purity and faithfulness in the marriage bond. Moral theologians argue it encompasses all forms of sexual immorality, so not just lust in the heart, but pornography, inappropriate emotional attachments. You could have an emotional affair with someone. That also breaks the commandment. To differing degrees. There is, like all sin, there's varying degrees in culpability. But either way, the interpretation of, New Testament and Matthew 5, emphasizes that sin begins in the mind, and that true obedience requires purity of thought, intention. So it's not just physical restraint, it's restraining your heart. The Sixth Commandment affirms the positive value of marital fidelity. Marriage represents a sacred covenant, reflecting God's, faithful relationship with humanity. By remaining faithful to one's spouse, you are not only honoring your partner, but also God's design for marriage. When you were married, it was with God as well. There's a triune bond in the marriage sacrament of marriage between spouses and God. And it is seen by two witnesses and blessed by a minister. And that's what constitutes that sacrament. It's essential to, not only just the faithfulness that creates that security in the home, but you have trust, stability, and these are essential ingredients for having, and raising children in society and maintaining a healthy home. Otherwise, these grave sins can really wreck and destroy your home, your family, your relationship. Lastly, in society, traditional marriage really faces, especially lately, a lot of challenges, especially with pornography. Commandment remains very relevant. Consequences of infidelity, I already spoke about in the Old Testament. It's very serious. The Lord again wrote this commandment with his very finger on stone, so we not forget it. 4,000 plus years ago. And the consequences of thou shalt not commit adultery: broken homes, traumatized children, destroyed trust. It just demonstrates the importance and the wisdom behind this very ancient law. Moreover, there are also studies that show, that the children thrive best in a stable, two-parent household where, commitment and fidelity prevails, but also it's shown to the children this is how marriage is. The Sixth Commandment teaches respect for others in their relationships. Respect other people who are married. Do not mess with their spouse's love for each other. It's just very grave, very serious. Do not do it. The importance of sexual integrity is so... It's the first thing that breaks down in communities and societies, is people in the homes not being faithful to one another. The Sixth Commandment serves as, a timeless guardian of human dignity, guardian of relational trust, guardian of marriages and homes and relationship and societal well-being. Ultimately, in the end, God's desire is that we're faithful to one another. that the marriage bond be kept sacred and respected. It mirrors his covenant with his people, not just the Old Testament, but the New Testament. St. Paul even talks about in the 5th chapter of Ephesians, he says that, he compares the church's relationship with Christ, us to Christ in baptism, confirmation, etc., to marriage. And that he urges husbands and wives to, reflect that divine love with your fidelity. Mirror that divine love that God has for his people with your marriage. And keep it sacred, because it reflects all things good. It reflects God's eternal covenant with his people. And if we want to be with him in heaven, that bond, where there will be no more marriage, but there will be that bond with God, that remains. And so thou shalt not commit adultery. Take it to heart, take it to prayer. And if you have fallen into this sin of adultery, run to a priest, get absolution, go to marriage counseling, start over. If it's at the 10-year mark, 20-year mark, whatever, it doesn't matter. Start over. Don't give up. Don't give up on the bond. Relationships shift and change over time. That's expected. Don't think it's going to be honeymoon days every day for the rest of your life, especially when you have children. And when people grow, they stay close to one another. I tell all my married couples when I am blessing their marriage, in the wedding experience, I tell them, tell each other every night before you go to bed, you love each other, even if you don't feel it, and you forgive each other, even if you're not guilty. Just say, I love you, I forgive you, and have a wonderful night. If you do that, your marriage will continue to blossom and grow, just like this oak tree. Actually, it's a dead tree. Just like any plant or bush or flower or tree, give it some love and care. Give it some sun and some water. Get it your marital bond the attention it deserves and the ingredients needed to make it deep, intimate, rooted in God. No storm will break it. No infidelity will even cross your heart and mind, because it continues to grow and become more intimate. It gets better and better and better. So if that's not happening in your marriage, you got to come back to the table and talk about it. If you've given up, if your spouse has given up, or maybe counseling is okay. I've counseled a lot of marriage couples. I've saved a lot of marriages. We get to the heart of the problem, we address it, then I go right to the heart of the love. I said, do you love each other? And they're generally said, yeah. Do you forgive one another? I've had spouses, women and men, forgive each other for infidelity, even emotional infidelity. Remember, thou shalt not commit adultery. It was written on stone by God's own finger, and we should remember, respect, and appreciate it.